This evening, however, we're not having polls, we're having a very interesting talk from Steph Kerr, who is nobly speaking to us at 6 a.m. in her morning, because temporarily she's the other side of the world, but returning to Leamington in 2 weeks' time. Steph, we're very, very grateful to have you. And Steph runs the Leamington Bid. And for those of you who thought you knew, and maybe right, and for those of you who didn't know, a bid is a business improvement district. So if you got it right, pat on your back. I'm not going to say much more. I'm going to let Steph get on with her talk, but I am going to say this bit. Whenever I go to a meeting, and Stephanie's into everything in Leamington, whenever I go wearing whatever hat and I'm at a meeting with Steph, I always leave feeling more enthused and thinking, I must go off and do something positive as well. Steph, over to you, and thank you very much indeed for coming to talk to us about futures in Leamington.
Thank you, Sydney, and hello, everybody. Okay, I'm just going to share my screen, so we'll just make sure this side of things works. Right, are we all shared?
Yes.
Can we all see Sydney? Brilliant, that's wonderful. Right, brilliant. So thank you for having me, and thank you for tuning in. The technology surely is allowing amazing things at the moment, isn't it? Now, firstly, I wanted to extend my sincere thanks to the Leamington Society for hosting this talk and the important series of talks that has preceded me. The work done by the Leamington Society over the years is absolutely amazing, place shaping, and through hosting these vital and interesting talks, they continue to inform and support the future agenda and direction of our town. Reflecting this, my talk will be a little bit of a journey of information, observation, reflection, and some crystal ball gazing as we consider how to support positive change in our town centre. And of course, I welcome your thoughts and feedback. I hope it will be interesting and also raise some questions. And I hope you'll be assured that despite the clear challenges faced by many right now, if we work together, keep talking and support each other, our town centre and its community is well placed to thrive. I'm conscious that when I was asked to speak on this topic, it was back in October last year, and a lot has happened since then, including the announcement of a £10 million investment in the town centre via the Future High Street Fund. So questions about the future look and feel of our town and the values we want to hold on to as we go forward are important as ever, as change is occurring rapidly. So without further ado, I'll run through my proposed agenda this evening. Firstly, for those that don't know me, I'll provide a little bit of background on myself and the various hats I wear. Then I'd like to set the scene, drill into the concept of change, both in terms of our town centre, as well as what some of the experts are saying about towns and high streets, and the power of local communities like ours. It's actually quite exciting if we can get it right. I'll then zoom into Leamington Town Centre to consider how we're shaping up to these challenges, opportunities and emerging ideas, both in terms of our COVID response and future transformation. Looking to the future, I'll address some strategic placemaking questions facing our town right now and cover some ideas, values and resources that it might be worthwhile for us to consider going forward. And finally, I'll finish by highlighting a few of the bid's emerging ideas and how we hope to position ourselves to support positive change going forwards. And then we've got some time for some Q&A, I hope. So who am I? Many of you know me simply as Steph, someone who lives in Leamington and is hugely passionate about the town, popping up all over the place, as Sydney said. Alongside a few fantastic others, I'm also known for my desire to connect people and organisations up for good. And of course, others know me formally through my role leading Bid Leamington, which I've been doing for 10 years. I also have a few other hats and roles which inform my talk today in a variety of ways. This includes long-standing roles on various LEP subgroups in the National Bid Foundation Council, and more recently I've been appointed an expert to the High Streets Task Force, and locally I've accepted a role on the Board of Creative Leamington. These recent appointments are opening the door to incredible expertise and training from the task force and wonderful energy and creative inspiration locally. Another area of interest for me is public engagement and representation. So building on my planning background, I've recently completed a Master's in Public Administration, focusing on governance and decision-making in community-facing organisations. I also thought it might be helpful to share a little bit of my journey here to Leamington, because I think as COVID has shown us, we're all much more than our current jobs, labels, and what you see. I also think it's important, this is important as we tackle some of the challenges facing our communities, as we need to balance different and sometimes conflicting views. And that might call us to look a little deeper into someone else's perspective or experience and adjust accordingly. My route to Leamington has been colourful, and my work as an urban planner has taken me to some really interesting places all over the world that inform my perspective here. In Canada, I was part of a team that remade the main boulevard in Edmonton, which included the development of a new light rail transit stop. Just outside of Porto in Portugal, I was part of a team looking at the feasibility of a new super connected IT city. In beautiful Tbilisi, Georgia, we master planned a mixed-use Riverside development, and in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, among other things, I worked on a public engagement strategy for their strategic plan, the first of its kind. And even our personal interests are important. I enjoy cycling, as you can see, long distances, and I used to be pretty handy on an Outback station. I think it's probably the philosophy from there that serves me now. My boss once said, "You work for me, you work hard, there's never nothing to do." And moving a little closer to home, I'll just cover briefly the world of bid. I'm not going to go too much into the bid mechanics on this slide, as many of you are familiar with this, but importantly, we are a business-led partnership and have around 400 members made up of a variety of business types. Over the years, we've done some awesome things, and I feel very privileged to be serving such fantastic businesses who buy into and support this collaborative agenda and the idea that our town centre is a community centre. Collectively, they have invested millions in our town centre and enabled things like the Food and Drink Festival, lanterns, Christmas lights, and so much more. Of course, recently, our focus has drastically changed towards business support in every possible way you can imagine. However, as I'll explain shortly, we're also looking beyond COVID to a new transformational agenda. Okay, so before I take a deep dive into the future, I wanted to set the context a little for us. What we can say with absolute certainty is that change is in the air, and it is safe to say it always was, though now it has accelerated. What is interesting, however, is that the changes we are seeing are not linear, and they're not always consistent with each other or positive. So let's take a look. What we all know about the public health changes facing our communities right now, in and out of lockdown, and hopefully we are on the way out, but we must remain cautious and rebuild confidence in our community again. Social justice and the environment has risen much higher up the agenda, which is a very good thing and long overdue. However, actions appear to be sliding both ways. Technology has supported many behavioural changes, from online retailing to food delivery services to working at home. We have changed, and we are not quite sure how things will shake down and settle back. There are big questions about the economy, who and how we will pay for this COVID investment, and some argue that the system is fundamentally flawed and must change. Very positively, there is a huge amount of exciting development planned in and around our town centre. I've listed it on this slide, and you can learn about it in previous talks that you'll find on the Leamington Society website. This includes all the developments listed in Andrew's Inspiring Vision and Hopes talk, the county discussion on future mobility, Nigel's fabulous Mill Street co-working space, and the work of the incredible gaming and creative technology sectors, which make a huge contribution to our town. We will almost certainly see further private investment in our town centre as buildings are renewed and change use, and we cannot escape the discussion about the future of the parade right now, which I will return to later. So alongside this hugely positive local activity are many other changes, and this impacts everyone differently. So naturally there is potential for potential for tensions and divisions as we try to balance everything. So with this in mind, key questions for me relate to how we take everyone on this journey. What is the vision for the future and who decides? Are the current platforms we have enabling the right conversations? And what is important to our community as we get there? So now for some crystal ball gazing as we take a look at what's being said about high streets and town centres and their building blocks in the future based on some emerging trends. Of course, high streets and town centres have been the focus of the government for some time. Following Portis in 2011, Bill Grimsey and his team carried out their first review in 2013, but it is the 2018 Grimsey Review 2 and the Build Back Better COVID supplement that has been endorsed by the High Street Task Force Group, which I would say is required reading for those interested. When you hear Bill talk, he is excited. He and others point out that the change we see on our high streets, including the contraction in retail space as people go online, is not pandemic driven, but pandemic accelerated. In retail terms, now it is like we're in 2030, when it was predicted 30% would be online. To remain competitive, it is suggested that high streets need reinvention based on their unique heritage and community, and they need place leaders to step up and make bold plans. The reports highlight the importance of local communities and leadership and advocate the design of community hubs which bring together health, education, retail and leisure all in one radius, say 15 to 20 minutes in a town or city. They also talk about designing multifunctional buildings and attractive and accessible public ground designed around people, not cars, and offering unique experiences that surprise and delight and that people really want to come to. Listening to Bill Grimsey, he imagines that in 2040 we will have less cars, electric transport designed around mobility hubs. Everything will be more technology, people, pedestrian and experience focused, and towns will have more housing with unique independent shops. What do you think? And this pattern of accelerating the trends we are already seeing is being discussed in other sectors. We have seen offices empty out, and understandably, the return has been hesitant. It sits at about 30% in cities. There are various predictions around how businesses will treat working from home in future and who it will suit, and how many businesses might decant from cities to smaller hubs in towns like ours, but needless to say, change is anticipated. As property managers and business owners seek to attract people back, on one hand, there is an awareness that productivity is supported by collaboration and social connection. And on the other hand, they recognise they are not only competing with work from home, but actually work from everywhere, as co-working spaces, cafes, and even hotel lobbies are now viable places to work from. So everyone is thinking about the experience on offer and the kinds of convenience, wellness, and lifestyle services they need to wrap around their offer to attract people back. So this might be dry cleaning services or a pop-up nail bar or food and drink. They also know that one size does not fit all, so quality and flexible options are both important considerations when designing new spaces. So this might be just offering the office space and tapping into the surrounding support services nearby, which is something like we've seen with Meet by the Park in Leamington. This is also the case in the leisure sector, which although it is taking a huge hit right now, the expectation is that it will continue to play a much needed and perhaps expanded role in our lives. Taking together, there are many aspects of this picture that present as opportunities for a town like ours, both in respect to capturing some of the city-based worker market and offering high quality, flexible, connected work options right here. We're already on this path, as the co-working space at 1 Mill Street demonstrates. And the story is the same for retail, really. It is not dead, but changing. In Leamington, we had already seen the contraction of some bigger retail brands and an increase in the leisure offer before COVID. And this may continue somewhat, we're not quite sure yet. But now is the time for our independence, which is good news for us, as this has been a strength in Leamington for some time. Prior to COVID, they made up 70% of our retail offer. Equally, once they are allowed to trade freely, we see opportunities for the health and beauty sector to bounce back, particularly in a place like Leamington, where well-being is in our DNA. And of course, we are closely watching this space, as these businesses have had it very tough in the last year, and their ability to survive is also based on personal circumstances and many other factors. So they absolutely need our support right now. A final trend we can expect to see is further residential development in our town centres, which will add to the local populace. The feeling is that with more work from home, the size of units and the quality is going to be increasingly important, along with developments meeting environmental targets for more discerning buyers. So as you can see, the idea is that we accelerate towards something better, something more people and environment focused, that will be more profitable as well. So what does this mean for us here in Leamington? There sure is a lot to consider. Firstly, I want to point out that we have amazing DNA in our town. I've always said there's something in the water in Leamington, and there really is. We already have history and community on our side. Our health and wellbeing heritage is a huge asset, and we have the green lungs of Jefferson Gardens and the pump rooms breathing life into the heart of the town. And our community is amazing. The town centre really is a community centre, and we have a wonderful array of partner organisations and community volunteers who together shape the wonderful, supported, connected community we are all so lucky to live in. So we are not starting from scratch, and there is a lot to celebrate. These pictures are just a glimpse. All this is not to say we don't have our challenges, but this is some of what Bill Grimsey and others were talking about: unique history and community which will return. We're planning for some of it right now. So thinking about our COVID response, I believe this connectivity and community is what has helped us to be resilient as well. Back in March last year, I was able to pick up the phone and in flooded generous offers of support for our local businesses all over town. You also saw us tap into our DNA and use a local designer to produce creative floral communication materials that were welcoming and made national and international papers. Our local businesses have also been stars. Thousands of meals have been donated to the homeless and to the NHS. It has been hard work, but it really is a privilege to celebrate and support local people and businesses at this time. And of course, this is still very important as we continue to rebuild confidence and continue to work to keep our community safe. However, looking forward as we move down the road to recovery, we are thinking about what transformation looks like in Leamington, and importantly, how we get there. I touched on it in previous slides. I believe we are very well placed to thrive. However, it will be a team effort, and we have some important decisions to make. Evidence suggests that footfall will return, but recently the uplift is slightly less than other places, which isn't surprising to me, but it tells me confidence may be an issue. Importantly, we are not back to previous levels and have not been anywhere near previous footfall levels for more than a year. So decisions about future mobility, car park demand and the like need to be taken cautiously. At this point, I feel we need to let the dust settle. All businesses continue to need support right now. Though looking at the bigger picture, as I mentioned, we have a wonderful, innovative, independent sector that will thrive. I can also see many more opportunities for businesses, many more opportunities to collaborate across businesses and sectors. So there is a big opportunity to build on the distinctive local assets we have here: our strong, recognised Regency brand, our amazing community, the amazing tech, gaming, virtual reality sector and 5G investment, our health and wellbeing DNA, and the beautiful spa gardens which offer so much. However, we do have some areas that need more focus and attention. We have a huge amount of planned development on the menu in Leamington, from one end of the town to the other. There will also be changes to the plan. Well, there have also been changes to the planning system that, along with other trends, will impact the mix of uses in our town. We also have many different stakeholder needs that we need to balance. As you know, there's also a lot of discussion about the parade, future mobility and climate change that we need to reconcile locally. So who decides and how? Many decisions are already in progress. Looking at some of the polarized debate on Facebook and the emails I sometimes get, I wonder if existing platforms are enabling the right conversations. Do we need to reboost our town forum group? Do we need a single place to find out about all these significant changes with supporting narrative to inform decision making? I can't help but think that talks like this are essential. I'm also interested in thinking about the values we will embrace to guide decision making at a time when some of us have been in quite small bubbles for some time. Other emerging considerations for me also relate to the need for us to understand the needs of different users and hold diverging perspectives at the same time. For example, when thinking about road closures, it's important to stand in the shoes of a delivery driver who you may be asking to do all their deliveries at night or drive further. Or in the case of the parade, a shop owner whose stock must all come in through the front door. Right now, timing is important as our community is still hugely challenged by COVID, so their capacity to engage may be limited, and they are all looking for certainty. With our health and well-being hat on, I feel this calls for a very community-centric approach. It's not easy and it also takes time, but there are some excellent resources out there to help us and lots of inspiration. The work being done by the High Street Task Force, of which I am a part, is excellent and helps places really drill down on the things that they need. So for my 2 cents, I've identified a few areas I feel we could focus on. And of course, I absolutely value your thoughts and feedback. I was speaking to an industry colleague the other day, and she said, chaos loves a vacuum. And she's right. What this says to me is we need a plan, a revised vision and strategy for our town centre to help us bring all this change together. At the moment, it's spread across various documents. This needs to be underpinned by updated, robust data and research, and it should help us to prioritise investment decisions in a sensible way and avoid costly mistakes. It should also be bold and inspiring, and ideally created with the community, so it has collective buy-in and supports open, transparent conversations. I'm reminded of the former CEO of Puma, now the CEO of Harley Davidson and founder of the B team, Jochen Zeik, who when faced with a difficult decision asks, is it fair, honest, positive, and creative? I don't need to go into this in detail, but agreeing our collective values on projects, in groups, and indeed as a town can help us prioritize actions and inform how we do things going forward. I think the how is going to be increasingly important. And lastly, I will always come back to this. We must invite our community to help and help them to help, if that makes sense. That is all of us here tonight. There is a huge amount of passion, expertise, fantastic ideas and energy in this audience and beyond. So we are definitely on the right track. Also, it feels good to get involved in things and help others do the same. All kinds of benefits arise, from tackling loneliness to healing division in communities. Too often good ideas get buried in bureaucracy. So I'm encouraging leaders and decision makers to think about how we can all actively support more community engagement and activity. Let's knock down those barriers to amazing. And now, as I draw to a close, I wanted to briefly address the question of the parade closure in the future, as I've been asked about it an awful lot. Our dear parade has changed a number of times over the last 100 years or so this is not new. What I would say is that there's a lot in what I've said this evening that I feel is relevant to this debate. Accordingly, I feel that at the moment, from the conversations I see, there is a lot missing right now. I remain open-minded about this, and I agree that the idea of bringing the green lungs of the spa gardens deeper into the heart of the town is compelling, but there is a lot to consider. A few of you would have heard the vision, very few of you would have heard the vision I penned in a moment of madness last year. We've all got our ideas. There's a lot we can learn from other places too. These pictures look nice, but context is important, not least. Many of them are flat. And I note the one on the top and the one in Vienna was not realized and was highly controversial. So we need to understand why. Our parade is iconic, So in this conversation, we are talking about a change of character as well as a change of function. There are also 140 businesses in the closed area, many of whom who have no rear access, and around 300 in the immediate surrounds who we've not heard from, as right now they are busy trying to survive. Also, as far as I know, there is no money at the moment set aside for a public realm change of this scale and significant needs in other parts of the town, like Bath Street. So let's see, the topic is being somewhat politicised, and the county have committed to look at this further, which is excellent. But I would urge the next phase of work is done carefully to manage expectations. It could be amazing, but it's all about the how. And finally, to finish off this evening, I thought I would quickly cover a few things that are actually in my gift to influence, which is the next steps of the bid. Right now, we are still delivering the recovery phase of our COVID strategy, supporting local businesses and building confidence in the community to return. But as you have heard about, we are looking at how we support future transformation. So this includes researching trends, developing new networks, working on ways to bridge barriers for businesses in our community. We will also continue to actively engage with the wider community and act as a voice for businesses and support future investment with advice and other help. Looking forwards, we very much want to position ourselves to support and inspire positive change. Similar to many, COVID has reinforced our existing direction of travel, albeit with less money. Thinking back to my last board meeting before COVID, now over a year ago, we had agreed an inspiring new agenda. Among other things, we wanted to address the Agenda 21 sustainability goals as a business and then a town. One of our members has been carbon neutral for 12 years and offered to support other businesses who are interested in this. We have 2 zero waste stores in town, which is actually quite amazing and very telling. We also discussed engaging more with the office, gaming and service sectors to improve connections, and talked about ideas such as yoga and mindfulness in the pump rooms as part of a health and wellbeing agenda. And as well as the idea of Friday lunches for office workers to enjoy short, snappy, fun events and workshops in local retail businesses. The possibilities are exciting, which is why I love this job. So with that, I will leave on my final slide, which is a horrible slide, if I'm honest, a massive pile of words, but it's a summary of some of the ideas I've talked about. And then I'm happy to take some questions. I know this has been epic, and I thank you for your kind attention. So I'll pass back to Sydney.
Thank you very much, Steph. If you could just leave your slides there for a little longer, it will enable everybody to actually take it in. Because there's quite a lot there.
There is quite a lot there, and obviously we can come back to it later, but what I'm talking about here is in our decision making, really making the place the hero of conversations. When you focus your decision making around the place, it can often take the individual perspective, it shades the individual perspective in a different way, and of course inviting our community to help, doing the groundwork, recognizing we're not starting from scratch, thinking about representation, balancing ambition with responding to existing challenges and inequalities. Creativity is key, as is collaboration. It's one of my sort of key ideas that we've always run with. Looking to learn from nature. Nature's very good at adapting. There's a fabulous concept around biomimicry, which I love, which is, I've talked about it in previous presentations. And let's not forget to celebrate. Really, really important to celebrate all the positives that we've got.
Thank you very, very much indeed. If you'd like to stop sharing your screen, and if other people would like to turn on their videos so that people can see each other. We do have some questions in the chat. Margaret,
Thank you very much, Steph, for a fascinating talk. I think we're very lucky to have somebody like you in Leamington. And you're going to help us, I'm sure, cope with what is quite a difficult situation, even quite frightening sometimes. Can I start with Marianne Pitt's question, which is, how much consultation is there with minorities, say the Sikhs or the Poles? We are a very WASP group. You mentioned consultation and reaching people, so I wonder how you think we're going to manage to reach a bit better.
Yeah, so I absolutely agree that when I talk about listening to the unheard, I would say young people is also a group that we've overlooked sometimes as well, and can make a huge contribution. Ultimately, it's about building relationships with different people within our community and actively reaching out, not expecting them to come to you as well. Obviously, some of this is not in my gift. So some of the things that I've been talking about is, as I say, re-establishing a town forum group, but doing it through a lens of really, really working hard to seek out and invite other voices, new voices to the table. But equally, as I say, I run the bid, and there's a lot of other different organizations in town, and I think we can all be doing that, building those relationships, building those bridges between different parts of our community. I think as well, what's really important is when it comes to diversity and representation, it's not just about that. Inclusion is really, really important. In fact, it's sometimes more important, like how inviting is the group to actually participate on. And some of that is in terms of how structures are set up, how people speak to one another, and so on. It can make a group inviting and welcoming or not. So those are other things that we can think about as we reach into different parts of our community. It's just recognizing that if you're new to a group, it can be very confronting. So, yeah.
Thank you. The next one I've got is from Hafiz Ahmed, who says or asks, you say reinvention is the way forward. How would you reinvent the town centre?
It's a huge question, really, isn't it? As I said, I think firstly, going back to what we were talking about, I would say that we need to bring the right group of people together to consider the question and also reach out to our community. There's a whole pile of things that are happening beyond our control, and investments that are going to come in, and investments that are already planned. And then it's about sort of positioning those around some of the other aspirations that people have, and some of the other priorities that we have, you know, certainly around climate change and so on. So it's certainly not down to one person, and it's certainly not down to one organization. But as I say, I think there's also an opportunity to perhaps to create a different platform, so that we all can have these conversations. So as I say, I penned a vision document some time ago. I'd be very happy to share it with the Leamington Society, but that's just my vision. And it's not just, you know, and jobs like this aren't just the ideas of one person. So I hope it's not like a complete answer, but I hope that's a bit of an answer.
It's going to be a process, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Susan Rasmussen says 3 years or more were spent getting the opinions of the community, residents, businesses, visitors, etc., of Leamington Spa for our neighbourhood plan. We have a vision already. How do you see the neighbourhood plan featuring in the future?
The neighbourhood plan is exciting and fundamental, and obviously it's going to get voted on shortly, or it's going through its referendum process. It's absolutely exciting. I would say though, it's wide ranging. It covers the whole town, and a lot of what I'm talking about really is focused around the town centre. Obviously it has implications for the wider town as well. But I see there's a part, obviously the town centre is represented in the neighbourhood plan, but there's a huge vision. But as I said, that's one document that's got some absolutely valuable information in it, but there's also a whole range of other documents that we need to bring together.
Thank you. Tim asks, is development of the Riverside in your plans?
Well, obviously, the bid, it's not in the bid's gift to develop the Riverside. Certainly, I understand from Andrew and the team at the District Council that the development of the Riverside is within their sights. I'd urge you to have a look at Andrew's Vision and Hopes talk on the Leamington Society website to learn more about their development plans. But of course, I see the development of the Riverside to be a huge opportunity to the town. At the moment, some of our buildings facing the river are sort of facing away from the river, and I think there's an opportunity to embrace the water more, both the canal and the river, in terms of how we look at future developments in that area. So the design of those schemes is going to be very important, and I just feel like there is a great opportunity to enable us to get within the community, if you like, to get within closer proximity of our riverside and enjoy it more. Not everywhere, because obviously the Jefferson Gardens, the natural areas are beautiful, but just where we've got these buildings fronting onto the river and the canal.
Thank you. The next two questions are from Francis Lassoc. Other than shopping local, what can we do as local residents to support the high street?
It's a really
put that one to you first.
Yeah, it's a really lovely question. I mean, obviously shopping local is really important, but we're very conscious that also there's still some people that are self-isolating and so on. So you can shop online. There's loveleamington.com is where we've got all the online businesses showcased. But equally, another thing that I'd really encourage, because it's not just about shopping, I would say it's really about shouting about the businesses you love. All of us are pretty vocal on social media, and you know it gives the business a real boost if you are able to write something positive about them and share that with your friends. So I would say it's about championing the local businesses you love, telling them that you love them as well. That can be a real boost. So I hope that's a bit of a start.
The second question was talking the long-term changes in shopping patterns and the Build Back Better supplement. How do you think Leamington compares to the norm nationally?
I think that some of the things that the High Street Task Force are tackling in other places, Leamington is a long way ahead of some of those other places. I don't think you need to look too far beyond Leamington to realise that. You can go to high streets and town centres around the country which really are decimated. I mean, one of the ideas that I think Bill Grimsey talks about is that he talks about the 20th century being about clone towns, and the future being about uniqueness and independent stores. Now, I've never really characterized Leamington as a clone town. I think our heritage assets, our Regency buildings, our DNA sort of set us apart in many ways, and provide a huge opportunity to build on that, and obviously to celebrate that as well. So I think but equally, as I say, there's an awful lot that we can take from some of those messages. But I do think we've got a bit of a head start, but we can't be complacent, because the idea is that these towns are all looking to make themselves unique and interesting and draw on their heritage assets. So there will be more competition in future if they're successful as well.
Thank you. Jan Gillette says, air pollution has not been much featured. It's complex to cut emissions, but one immediate impact could be to reduce or eliminate the number of parked cars keeping their engines running. There are usually up to 20 in the central streets. We need signage, as in Westminster and elsewhere, and we need the traffic wardens to ask or demand that people turn their engines off. What are your views, Steph?
I'd agree. I think that waiting, obviously, with your engine running is not a great idea. Some cars automatically do it now, and I do think that as we go forward, I personally think that there needs to be something done in government, like they did in France, to make the more energy efficient cars, electric cars and stuff and so on, more affordable. But I absolutely agree that cars sitting waiting with the engines going is not a good thing at all. Equally, I think there's an opportunity to make sure that traffic's flowing around places, so that we're not getting backed up traffic and long queues as well. So there's two sides to that as well.
Hafiz Ahmed asks, business owners have highlighted car parking as a priority. What is your view on this?
Car parking absolutely is a priority, and it can't be overlooked. One of the things I talked about right at the start of this presentation was that there's a lot of development proposed in the town, and it's focused around car parks. Now, at the moment, we've got a draft car parking strategy that was done pre-COVID, and I would argue needs to be updated so that we can understand this much better. I know quite a lot about car parking. I won't go into the detail now, but it is absolutely an important issue, you know, not least for the fact that the public transport, something's happened, the public transport options in the town centre, I would argue, could be improved a lot. And also there's a hesitancy about public transport at the moment still with COVID on the agenda. So it's a complex issue. Obviously it runs across 2 councils on and off street, but it's something that we have to look at, and we have to look at carefully, looking at different perspectives and with the right data and the right analysis as well, because people have to get to a place. I'm conscious that before COVID, and I suspect it will be the same, 40% of the visitors to our town were coming from well beyond Leamington, Coventry, and all of the places around. So we've got to think about how they get here as well.
Thank you. So Judy says the students are absolutely key to this. Many graduates stay in their uni town, which for the best business uni in the country is Royal Leamington Spa. Leamington must be a place of aspiration and ambition and opportunity. That generation will ensure diversity and green progress, I'm not sure, which is all green progress, I think it is, which is all our future. Leamington will always be a wonderful place to retire to, but the students are key. Have you got a comment on the role of students, Steph?
Just that I absolutely agree. I think there's just nothing to disagree with on that, really. I think we do have to think hard about how we keep them here. I'm also conscious that students naturally tend to want to travel, and traveling is a good thing, and it's always interesting to me how many people I meet who have studied here, gone away, done some things, and come back again as well. So there's sort of 2 parts to that picture, but certainly we need to be making sure we're offering them a great experience when they're here, making sure that there's jobs for them to stay, but also involving them in the activities of our town. Now, as a bid, we've actually always had no problem doing that. Every year I have loads of students from Warwick Uni volunteering at our lantern making workshops, volunteering at the food festival and some of our events, because we've made those connections with the uni, and I'm hoping to re-establish them post-COVID. I am also on the advisory group for Warwick College. So, you know, for some time now we've been having interns and sort of making those connections with the college and the town centre. That said, I think we could do much better. Creative Leamington have got a very youth focus in the work that they're doing, so I think that's really positive. But again, I also think it's about within our decision-making processes, making sure that we're not inadvertently sort of putting in place sort of barriers to some of the ideas that they've got. Sometimes people will come forward with an idea and immediately the answer is no, we don't think we can do that because it's not safe, or the highway authority won't approve it, or whatever, rather than the lens of saying, yes, right, let's figure out how we can do this. So I think, you know, there's a lot of things that we can do to sort of foster stronger relationships with young people in our town centre.
Right. Now I have another question from Hafiz Ahmed. I agree reinvention is necessary. How would you reinvent it? The partners and shareholders won't know what's required of them unless someone tells them what the reinvention required is. Don't know if you have a comment on that.
I think my comment on that would just be really that I agree that we do need to have a way that those living in the town, those working in the town, those investing in the town can tap into can understand an accurate picture of what the future is going to look like. Hence my thoughts around having maybe a centralized platform that's up to date where this information is brought together, and also a method for them to engage with that information. As I say, at the moment, I'm aware of it, but it's across many different documents and many different forums at the moment. So I agree, though, it is really important that we've got a way of helping people understand what this change is going to look like and the time frame over which it's going to occur. It's not going to all happen at once.
Peggy King says, when they link Stratford-upon-Avon with Warwick, how will that impact on the development of Royal Leamington Spa?
I assume you're talking about the amalgamation of the councils. Yeah. Ultimately, I hope it will be positive. I think the intentions of the councils is that they can make some savings and deliver services in a more efficient way. I'm conscious that there's cultural differences between the places and the organisations, so those need to be reconciled. But ultimately, I think if the right leadership is there, that the good and the great from Stratford and the good and the great from Leamington can be brought together. And certainly, I know Stratford is an incredible asset in this area with Shakespeare and so on. I personally think that we've missed a trick in the past in terms of how we've attracted the many millions of visitors that come to Stratford in normal times, and they will return over to Leamington. I've often talked about a golden triangle between Leamington, Warwick and Stratford. So hopefully maybe we can generate a little bit more of that connectivity and thinking about how our places come together, because certainly when we live in a town, we don't just live in that town, and when we visit a place, we don't just visit that place.
Thank you. Then Kevin McGreal says, I agree it is essential that we create an integrated plan. What would you suggest is the next step in getting this going after the elections?
So obviously there's the county elections, and I know that there's some quite influential people listening today, so hopefully the feedback is, hopefully I can get some feedback from them on this idea, and we can speak to these other partners in the town, Leamington Society included, about maybe coming together and talking through some of the ideas that I've talked about in this presentation. I'd really welcome that. So yeah.
One final comment from Marianne Pitts. We need a good hotel. How do you think we can get a good hotel?
Oh, I completely agree. We've known for a long time that there's a shortage of beds in Leamington, if you like, a long time. And I've been hearing from a long time from people visiting the town that they would value a high quality, a sort of a high quality accommodation offer. Equally, I think, there's a opportunity now to rethink how accommodation, hotels and so on could be positioned in a town like ours. Certainly if we link it with our health and wellbeing DNA, if you like. In Andrew's talk and the creative quarter talk, actually, I forgot to mention that excellent talk as well. Both Ian Harabin mentioned the post office site. I know that there's always big questions around affordability and the economics of these ideas, but that's the challenge, isn't it? If you've got the vision and you've got the desire, I think we've proven with our £10 million High Street Fund grant that, Guy helped write the original application to that way back in, it was 2019, I think. If you've got those ideas, it is possible to get the money somehow. I'm always on the optimistic side. It does take time, but the Leamington Society is as well. I mean, you look at the pump rooms.
It's a good way to look at. I think we've reached the end of the questions now, Sydney.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Margaret. And Stephanie, thank you so much for yet another inspiring evening. There is an awful lot that you've told us, an awful lot of ideas, and an awful lot that I hope people will go away and discuss with their neighbours and come up with some creative ideas of their own, maybe, and get in touch with you at BID. But we are extremely grateful to you, and even more grateful that you've had to get up at the crack of dawn. It's not yet 7 a.m. with you, is it? I don't think.
We've got 7:24.
Oh, right. Coming towards breakfast time. But what a fabulous, broad brush approach, and with so much in it. Thank you so very, very much indeed. And if people are able, you do have reactions at the bottom. You can indicate with clapping, thumbs up, all sorts. So do that. Now, just before we go, I wonder whether Susan Rasmussen, if you can hear me, whether you would like to unmute yourself and just take just 2 or 3 minutes to tell people why you think they should be voting for the Leamington Neighbourhood Plan on the 6th of May. Some people may not realise that when you go to the polls on the 6th of May, you will also be asked to take part in a referendum on the Leamington Neighbourhood Plan, which I think is a jolly good one. Susan, over to you.
Gosh, this is an unexpected treat. Well, there are other people on this call who were working on it with me. And I know Rodney's here. Without scanning through the entire guest list, I can't tell who else. But we spent 3 or more years asking people what they thought about their hopes for the future of Leamington. Because the neighbourhood plan is a planning document which has legal status, and it sits below the local plan in order of a kind of planning hierarchy. But it gives an opportunity to a neighbourhood, and Leamington, it'll surprise you to know, is a pretty big neighbourhood, just about the biggest in the country to have a neighbourhood plan for itself. But it gives a community an opportunity to say what it values and what it hopes for the future, and to embed that into the legislative structure. So for 3 years, we stood out on windy corners. We went to Art in the Park and we boiled. We hung around in the leisure centre and the library. Didn't we, Rodney? Rodney's nodding. Yeah. And goodness knows what else. And we tried to get as many opinions from as many sectors of Leamington society as possible. Not just the residents, people who are here on a day trip, from businesses, communities. We invited religious organisations. And Catherine Geddes was absolutely amazing in trying to really get a comprehensive view of who we could and should be talking to and how we could reach out to everybody. So an awful lot of people responded, and we boiled it down to 5 main themes, the usual kind of ones, which off the top of my head: green spaces, housing, business, communities. And we developed a structured response, and it's all there for you to read online. Please, please read it, and please give it the thumbs up on May the 6th, because it's our neighbourhood plan. And the big news is that actually we only need 50% plus 1 vote for it to get passed. And a really good thing about it being passed is not only does the community then get their voice heard in how they want planning decisions to be taken, but we get an uplift in SIL money. Now, for those of you who don't speak this kind of language, SIL, well, my connection's unstable. SIL means Community Infrastructure Levy. So whenever we get a bit of money coming from developments, instead of getting X%, we get X plus Y%. So it means there's more money coming into the community for community projects. So all round, the neighbourhood plan is a very good thing, and please vote for it.
Thank you very, very much indeed,
Is that it?
Susan. Thank you.
Is that it, Rodney? Please nod.
Right. can I just say that when I edit the video, and hopefully it will be up on the Leamington Society website and on the Leamington Society YouTube, we put a link from our site to the Leamington Society YouTube channel. I will put in a link to the neighbourhood plan. I will also put in a link to Love Leamington, where you can find all the local businesses who do online ordering for you to make it easy for you.
Sydney,
Yes,
I raised a point with Susan. It's about the neighbourhood plan, very quick.
yes.
I just this morning had my postal vote form, and there's not a dicky bird about the neighbourhood plan in it,
It's all right.
let alone a voting slip.
It's all right. Actually, yes, if you're in receipt of a postal vote, there are 2 different envelopes that you will be receiving separately through the post.
Thanks for that clarification. I did wonder.
You've got a wonderful grasp of detail, Sydney. I'm so glad you knew that. Thank you.
Fine. Our next meeting is just 3 weeks' time. It's the annual general meeting, but with much, much more to it. Very much look forward to seeing you all there. And don't forget, you'll be able to catch up and refresh yourselves on all the wonderful things Steph told us earlier this evening on the YouTube channel by about Monday at the latest. And you can also see previous talks there, and on the Leamington Society website you will also see details of all our forthcoming talks too. Thank you to Steph, and thank you to everybody else for coming. Good night to you all.